1,500 miles in 36 hours alone on this motorcycle for an iron butt certification. Could I even do that?
The big issue is now figuring out what time I'm going to make it to Motel 6.
Four years ago, I learned about iron butt rides from a friend of mine. I've been wanting to do one ever since, but things just never worked out. Until now.
Alright, so here we are at the Occo gas station where we're going to be starting the trip. I'm going to fill up the gas tank, record the mileage, record the start time, and then we'll pick it up from there and let's see where we go to.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know, if I will ever figure out where the road goes.
The plan was always to do a SaddleSore 1000 and a BunBurner 1500 in one iron butt trip. There was a lot of planning that went into this trip, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'll do that in another video. I planned the route for this trip to start at a gas station in Lynnwood, Washington, head south to Boise, Idaho, then to DuBois in Idaho, and up to Butte in Montana, and across to Missoula, Montana, where I'd spend the night. That would get me the 1,000 miles. The second day of the trip would get me the remaining 500 miles from Missoula, Montana, back to the gas station in Lynnwood, Washington again, and together that would get me the SaddleSore 1000 and the BunBurner 1500. Suffice it to say that I had planned the ride. Now all I had to do was ride the plan.
Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.
As I got to North Bend at the base of the Snoqualmie Pass, I was starting to get cold, and this is where the preparation really paid off. The temperature for the pass was forecast to be in the low 40s, so it was only going to get colder and more foggy. So I pulled off Interstate 90, pulled on a couple of extra layers that I had packed for exactly this, and I was on my way again. The Iron Butt Association relies on a picture of the bike's odometer next to a gas receipt showing the location, date, and timestamp of the gas stops to prove the route. This means planning the gas stops is critical, as the IBA will rely on Google Maps for the routing between the gas stops. I very seldom ride more than 2 hours without a stop, so I had 9 gas stops scheduled for day 1 and 5 for day 2. My second gas stop was in Ellensburg, Washington.
So we made it all the way to Ellensburg, Washington. That's about 120 miles we've done so far. It wasn't too bad at all. Snoqualmie Pass, I was expecting it to be a little bit more foggy than what it was, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The GoPro on the helmet stopped recording for some reason or another. I need to take a look at the car and see what happened there. Just take a look and see what this thing's doing. SD card error. Great. Let me just pull this off quick and change this up. My next stop now is to get some gas in this thing and then get on the road again. So let's get going. Oh, and mileage at this point is 22,540. Got my receipt. So now what I do, grab the camera for this, put these two next to each other, see if that works. Yep, date and time, mileage, perfect. Alright, so that's the end of this stop. Our next stop is in Kennewick. So we're running at this point about, what's it, 25 minutes late at the moment.
Been 20 nights and 20 days, lost without a friendly face. No reflection from my soul, emptiness is rising tall.
Should be a really pretty shot as we go through this gap over here, except there's the sun right in our faces.
A place to leave the dark in me forever.
Okay, so we're back on. So welcome to the town of Yakima in eastern Washington.
This angle on the bike gives you a very good idea of how I had the camera set up. Because I didn't have a passenger behind me to be able to film stuff as we were going, I mounted the cameras on the handlebars, one on the left side, one on the right, pointing the right. And then obviously there's another camera here, which is the one that was recording the view that you see here. These are all GoPro Hero 9s. The one on the helmet especially gave me a lot of trouble when it started running low on batteries, and it would have SD card errors and things like that.
For 20 nights and 20 days, I was drifting out of space. I turned away from every sound, from everything that shook my ground. But slowly I would start to change, feel the light within my range. The aberration time is due forever and ever.
I love it when you can get to go to exactly the places you scheduled to go to, and your stops are exactly what you scheduled them for. So there you have it, waypoint number 2. 22,652 is the mileage. We traveled 112.1 miles, and we did that in just over an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes.
How's it going so far? It's actually not been a bad day so far. That last section with the sun rising in my face was a little tough. That was hard. And I've changed into a pair of jeans now. Dropped the thick layer inside. We're ready to go. Next step is off to Baker City in Oregon. We'll cross the bridge over the Columbia River in the process. I'm going to have a little bite to eat here, take my meds, and then get back on the road.
So far, things are going pretty well. I arrived at the Kennewick stop at around 7:23 a.m. and the plan was to be in Kennewick by 6:35, so I was about 50 minutes behind schedule. I figured that could be chalked up to the late getaway from the Arco in Lynnwood and the clothing stop in North Bend. Apart from the glitch with the GoPro settings in Ellensburg, I hadn't really had any problems. So my schedule was calculated at an average speed of 60 miles per hour, but once you get into eastern Washington, it's pretty easy to maintain an average speed of somewhere between 70 and 75 and be riding within the speed limit. So I reckoned I could make up that 50 minutes over the rest of the day. This leg to Baker City, Oregon was the longest leg of the trip, 160 miles, about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I deliberately planned it that way so that I would ride this leg in the cooler part of the day and be in Boise by lunchtime. The plan had me in Baker City by 9:03. With me being 50 minutes behind schedule, that meant more like 9:45, but things were going according to plan, so I was good with that.
Chasing sunlight, racing for life, breaking silence to master the lies. You can tell a story, but I can deal telling it again just to make it real. I am on the run, I am chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life.
This is where this trip went a little sideways. The GoPro on my helmet had frozen again, and I pulled over at the Dead Man Past rest area to reset it. I lost another 30 minutes trying to get the GoPro going again, and that set me back, so I was now almost an hour and a half behind schedule. As I got back on the bike to leave, I had to remind myself about the 3 prioritized objectives that I had for this trip. The first was to get the SaddleSore 1000 certification. That's ride 1,000 miles in 24 hours. The second was to get the BunBurner 1500 certification. Ride 1,500 miles in 36 hours. The SaddleSore 1000 would count toward it. The third was to record the trip on video. Getting it on video was not the most important priority. I'm really glad I set those priorities very clearly up front. When the tough decisions came, it was going to be easy to decide.
Telling it again doesn't make it real. I am on the run, I am chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life. Chasing sunlight, racing for life. Breaking silence to master the lies. You can tell a story, but I can deal. Telling it again doesn't make it real. I'm on the run, I'm chasing light. I'm finally a part of the race for life. I'm finally a part of the race for life. I'm finally a part of the race for life.
Okay, so we made it to Baker City, Oregon. And we have 22,813 miles on the clock, which means that we have now done 400, just short of 400 miles. 397 miles so far. Yeah, we were supposed to be here around about 9 o'clock, and we are now, it's 10:20, so we're running a little bit behind. It is what it is. I'm gonna fill up the bike, and then we will head on for the rest of the trip down to Boise. We should be in Boise around lunchtime. I need to stretch a bit.
Heading out on our own with our hope in the clouds, and we're starting to see that we're onto something. Feel it coming, we'll keep running, nothing in our way, and we got no reason to wait. Let the journey take you where it wants to. We'll continue to find our way through anything we face. We got what it takes.
I had planned on my lunch stop happening at the Boise gas stop, but as I got to the Oregon-Idaho rest stop, it was getting hot, up in the high 80s, and I was hungry, and the GoPro on my helmet was giving trouble yet again. Thank goodness Ali packed my food and I didn't have to stop at the restaurants or fast food places, because it meant that I could eat healthy and I had the food I needed with me when I needed it. I still had 58 miles to Boise, so I decided I just had to stop.
Where the adventure begins.
Okay, so it is 102 Mountain Time, which is essentially 12:02 our time. So I stopped for lunch. I'm just gonna have a break and grab a bite to eat. I'm at a rest stop just inside the Idaho border. So you've just crossed on I-84 the Idaho border. It's been a very good ride so far. It's picking up and getting warmer. That's why I've stripped down into just my polo and my jeans now. It's a nice little rest stop. Got pretty views from here. I have the bike parked under the sign over there.
As pretty as the stop was, I thought about the impact of the unscheduled Dead Man's Pass stop between Kennewick and Baker City earlier. That stop messed up the riding plan, so that I had to make another stop for my lunch break. That meant 2 unscheduled stops that were unnecessary and wasted an hour.
Okay, so this was a break I really needed, and I'm glad I took it. I needed the toilet break, but more than that, I actually needed to stop and just catch up again. The big issue is now figuring out what time I'm going to make it through Motel 6.
As I rode away from the rest stop, I was worried about what time I would arrive at my overnight stop at the Motel 6 in Missoula, Montana. I was now more than 2 hours behind schedule. I just realized that the last leg from Butte to Missoula was now likely to be in the dark on a section of road I had never ridden, and that made me nervous. I still had plenty of time to complete the SaddleSore 1000, but I was worried about whether I could survive the fatigue because I'd been awake since 2:30 a.m. My first priority now needed to be the SaddleSore 1000, 1,000 miles in 24 hours. As I got closer to Boise, I decided that I needed to forget about recording the video from the GoPro on the helmet because it was just wasting too much time.
So it's 3:25 p.m. and I'm in Boise. I'm currently about 2 hours behind schedule, which is quite a long way behind. So I'm trying to make up my mind what my next steps are. I think if I keep going and keep down the video stuff and so on and so forth, we're good. But the problem is, I don't know how tired I'm going to get as we get further down the road. I'm doing okay at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. So let's see what happens. We'll take it from here.
Next stop, Carey, Idaho. About 149 miles, around a 2-hour ride. I had packed a water backpack with 3 bladders. Before I left, I filled the bladders to a third full and left them in the freezer overnight. I filled them with ice cold water just before I left, and so they doubled as ice packs in my saddlebags for my food. At the Boise stop, I put one of these bladders in the backpack and set myself up with water for the next 3 legs. As the heat started picking up, this was planning that really paid off. The Iron Butt Association's website warns you to expect you may need to cancel your plans, so my attitude and approach to this trip was to give it my best shot, but be prepared for the attempt not to succeed. This trip was worth the certification if I could do it, but it was certainly not worth my life, so I was not going to take any more risk than I could handle.
Every color filled with wonder. Now we finally see we got everything we need. Here we go. All we need is an open road and a chance to see a never-ending world that's beautiful. Here we go with the sunlight on our skin. It's a brand new day. It's ours to take and we will let it in. This is where the adventure begins.
This segment took us to 670 miles. So we are now more than 2/3 of the way there. And once we get to DuBois, we will be well over 3/4 of the way there, which is kind of exciting. Because this has been a long, hard ride. I'm going to stretch a bit and then we'll take off and do the next segment.
The next leg would take me to DuBois, Idaho, about 120 miles in an hour and 50 minutes. As I left Carey, I rode by the Carey Lake Migratory Bird Management Area, Carey Hot Springs, and the Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve. That's when it hit me what was different about an Iron Butt ride. Ordinarily, I would carve out time to go and stop at one of these places and get some pictures and video and enjoy the scenery. To get my Iron Butt certification, this ride was a race against the clock to get the mileage done, and there was not a lot of time to stop and smell the roses. I rode this leg in the heat of the day, and there was really strong wind blowing across the bike from my right for the whole leg, so I had to lean into the wind. Even though this was one of the shorter legs of the trip, dealing with the heat and keeping the bike from drifting because of wind gusts made it the most physically exhausting. It was no longer about enjoying the ride. It was about getting the mileage done.
Here we go. Here we go. Heading out on our own with our hope in the clouds. We're starting to see that we're onto something. Feel it coming now. Here we go. All we need is an open road and a chance to see a never-ending world that's beautiful. Here we go with the sunlight on our skin. It's a brand new day. It's ours
Okay, so we're in DuBois, Idaho, and that last segment was hands down the toughest segment of the lot. The temperature along the way, for the most part, was 89 degrees, and the wind was howling across, and it was a crosswind most of the way, and it really beat me up. So the next leg is going to be to Butte. It's going to be quite a long leg as well. So we'll see how it goes. I have some food now and then get going.
I was scheduled to leave DuBois at 4:52. I got away at 6:10, so I was now about an hour and 18 minutes behind schedule. By writing the plan from Boise and speeding up my fuel stops, I'd made up 40 minutes of the 2 hours I was behind.
I wanna go do something kinda crazy. I wanna go drive all night with you right next to me.
As if the GoPros had not already cost me enough anguish, the one on the right side handlebar quit on me at this point, and I wasn't going to waste any more time on technology that should just do its job.
When I die, I wanna know I lived like that. I wanna run in wide spaces, fly like the wind.
The 152 miles to Butte was scheduled to take 2 hours and 8 minutes, so I'd probably get there at about 8:20, and sunset was going to be a little after 9. When I planned the route, I had planned on getting to Missoula by 9, so that section of the route was in daylight. That wasn't going to happen now.
I wanna go make pictures look like postcards. I wanna go take the train and watch you sleep right in my arms. I wanna go where we don't know where we are. Climb something high, don't look down and don't look back. Yeah, when I die, I wanna know I live like that.
It was a little hot when I left DuBois, but as the sun started going down, the temperature dropped pretty quickly from 90 down to the low 70s, and I was starting to get cold, so I pulled over for a quick clothing change.
In my hand. Ooh, I wanna dance into the morning, kiss you like you never been kissed before me. I would go anywhere you wanna go, with your hand in my head. Anywhere you wanna go. So many things in this world I wanna do, and when I die, I wanna know you did them too.
As I pulled into the gas station in Butte, the last GoPro quit on me. It was getting dark, and I needed to finish the SaddleSore 1000, so this was the last footage I took from the bike. 153 miles in the last leg, and it was some of the most beautiful scenery I had seen. I had done a total of 945 miles in 17 hours, so I was only 55 miles away from hitting the magic 1,000 miles that I needed for the SaddleSore 1000. But the IBA recommends you have a buffer so that there's no doubt about it. I'd booked a reservation at a Motel 6 in Missoula, 120 miles down the road, so off I went. The footage you're watching here was shot 3 months later as Allison and I drove back from a trip to Yellowstone. I don't like using footage that wasn't from the trip, but I wanted to give you a sense of how technical this leg was. When I rode this section, the sun had set and it was dark. As good as my bike's headlights are, the road markings were not. I had been doing between 70 and 80 miles an hour on the last leg, but making out the corner apexes became harder and harder, especially as I often had headlights coming straight at me and I could not use my high beams. I don't like riding in the dark on roads I haven't seen before, and this was against the clock.
I wanna run in wide spaces, fly like the wind in high places, rushing like water on my face, with your hand in my head. Ooh, I wanna dance into the morning, kiss you like you never been kissed before me. I would go anywhere you want.
I never got sleepy on this section, but the leg from Butte to Missoula needed intense concentration, and when I pulled into the gas station in Missoula at 11:16, 2 hours behind schedule, I was absolutely exhausted, but I had done it. I had what I needed for the SaddleSore 1000. But this was more than just a SaddleSore 1000. It was also a Sharknose 1000. As the Iron Butt Association explains, this special certification is limited to riders of the Harley-Davidson Road Glide. These riders have nicknamed their bikes Sharknose and are recognized by the Harley-Davidson Motor Company as the riders who log more miles on their bikes than any other Harley-Davidson made. As I always say, road glide or no glide. But at this point, I just wanted to go to bed.
All right, so it is now Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night, and Mountain Time. It is 11:52. But I made it safe and sound back to the hotel. I haven't made up my mind yet whether or not I'm going to still try and go for the BunBurner in the morning. I'll see how my night's sleep goes, and then we'll take that from there. This right here is why I did this iron butt ride solo. First, flexibility. I could live when I wanted and choose my riding conditions without coordinating with someone else. Second, no pressure. I wanted to be able to pull the plug on the ride anytime and not feel like I was letting someone else down. If I did decide to try completing the BunBurner, I wanted to ride safely. As I went to bed, I was too tired to decide if I was ready for the next day. I wanted to sleep and leave when I was ready. And if that meant not making the BunBurner, then so be it. I have two very good friends who are both Motorcycle Safety Foundation rider coaches. When I told them I was thinking about doing the iron butt, both of them said, you need to go into the ride planning not to make it. Ride your own ride. Thank you, Sean and John, for that. Another friend of mine asked me, what are you trying to prove by doing this ride? It was rhetorical, but that question really hit me hard. It really got me thinking, and I'm really grateful to Will for asking that. Attitude and approach are important, and instead of thinking of it as a ride to cover miles in a constrained time limit, I changed it to be an exploration of my limits, accepting that I might not be able to do it at all. So was I going to complete the BunBurner 1500?
All right, so here we are. It's Thursday morning, and I'm standing outside the Motel 6, where I'm leaving from to head back. The bike is in a hell of a state, as you can see. We had a pretty good night last night, good night's sleep, and I'm glad I actually did the stopover. So now it's all the way back to the house.
I topped off the gas at the Missoula gas station at 7:30 and beelined it straight home from there. I needed to be at the Arco in Lynnwood by 2:55 p.m. and I decided I wasn't going to worry about the cameras at all now. I had met the first prioritized objective, the SaddleSore 1000. I'd also decided not to waste any more time on the cameras. If I was going to complete the BunBurner 1500, nothing else mattered. I'd planned the ride, now I needed to finish writing the plan. I stopped for gas again in Kingston, Idaho, Ritzville, Washington, and Ellensburg, Washington, before the final gas stop, which was at the Arco in Lynnwood, where I started the ride. I pulled into the gas station at 2:06 p.m., 49 minutes ahead of the 2:55 p.m. target that I needed to meet to get the 1500 miles in 36 hours. I had earned my BunBurner 1500. When I rode into the garage at 2:15, I was relieved that I had finally made it home. I was exhausted. I'd met my main prioritized objectives, the SaddleSore 1000 and the BunBurner 1500, and got some pretty good video, even if it wasn't for the whole trip. Most importantly, I had 3 major learnings from the trip. 1. If you're doing an iron butt ride, plan the ride and then ride the plan. The second was that the iron butt rides are not my normal kind of riding, where I get to stop and take video and pictures and take my time to change my plan. 3. I really enjoyed doing the ride alone. I enjoy my own company and the time to just drink in the world around me. I submitted all the paperwork electronically to the Iron Butt Association, and exactly 3 months later, I got my certification package in the mail. The letter reminded me what an achievement this really was. You now join a small community of motorcyclists from around the world that have managed to tackle and successfully solve the challenge of time and distance to earn the enclosed ride certification. We don't just slice open mail and issue certificates. Each ride application is put through a rigorous examination before certification is issued. You know, when you see an IBA plate back, the person with the plate back was held to the same high standards you were. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our long-distance family of riders. I had earned my SaddleSore 1000, my Sharknose 1000, and my BunBurner 1500. I really enjoyed the process of getting there. If you're thinking about doing an iron butt ride, just know that preparation and planning is absolutely critical to your success. Watch out for my upcoming video on how I planned this ride, and remember that to be successful, you need to plan the ride, then ride the plan.
I'm finally a part of the race for life.